What's up, everybody? Jacob here. We're talking about some Jalen Ramsey. It's looking really likely that the Rams are going to be moving off of Jalen Ramsey. It's not probably going to happen till June 1st because if they move off of him from June 1st, looking just at the breakdown, if they cut him today, they'd actually be losing $6.9 million. But if they were to do it and they were doing it via trade beyond the first of June, that's right, 1st of June, they'd save $17 million. And Jalen Ramsey had one of his worst years as a pro. Looking at last year, only had 4 interceptions, but then you look at the yards he allowed, 659 yards in the air, which was his worst since his rookie year. Passer rating allowed of 84.5, 11.6 yards per completion. He's definitely coming off one of his worst years as a pro, and we saw that from the Los Angeles Rams as a whole, they had a really bad year, and I think that's more to do with the team than it was to him. And we're here to talk about where we think he can go. And honestly, I think the Miami Dolphins does make a lot of sense. So Miami Dolphins, first thing that has to be addressed, yes, the Dolphins cap space is an issue, 16 million under the cap, over the cap right now, excuse me. So they're going to have to do some maneuvering, and Miami Dolphins Syndicate will be making a video probably later this week on what the Miami Dolphins can do to find themselves some cap space, because there's some definitely some things that the Dolphins could do, and we all know cap space is really a myth. That's something that can come and go, be created on a whim, especially if you just convert people's money to signing bonuses, and then you have money on hand. So he is expensive. Jalen Ramsey is expensive. He did sign a 5-year deal. He's going to be making $17 million next year, $14.5 the following year. In his final year, which is 2025, going to be making $15.5 million. There is a potential out after this year if he ends up not being good enough for the Miami Dolphins. So just like the Rams have him this year, and if they trade him after the June 1st deadline, or I don't know if it is a deadline, whatever it is with June 1st, if they trade him beyond that, they save $17 million. Miami Dolphins also could have that then next year. Looking at the Dolphins salary cap, again, that is something that can be adjusted. There's people that can be cut. That's something that we're going to be breaking down later. But I do think it does make some sense to go out and get Jalen Ramsey. Is that the Miami Dolphins' first priority, aka a cornerback? No, absolutely not. The Miami Dolphins with Xavier Howard, Nick Needham's going to be coming back. Trill Will really impressed in preseason. Byron Jones, based off his own words, looks like he's going to retire, but even if he doesn't, it looks like Byron Jones isn't going to be on the team next year. But there is talent at corner. There's talent in the secondary as a whole. You still have Javon Holland at safety. Brandon Jones is going to be coming back from his injury last season. So you're saying, Jacob, why would the Dolphins pursue Jalen Ramsey? They don't necessarily need him. You just brought in Vic Fangio, and I'm sure Vic Fangio would be able to coach up the players that the Dolphins do bring in for cheaper, and the Dolphins have proved to be very good at assessing either late round draft picks or even undrafted free agents, specifically in the secondary. So why would the Dolphins do that? I think the Miami Dolphins are going all out this year around Tua Tagovailoa. This is the make it or break it year for Tua, and even though that's not necessarily an offensive side of things, I think they're going to do whatever they can to surround the Dolphins team with as much talent as possible. And yes, Jalen Ramsey is coming off of a bad year. Again, 659 yards allowed, and it is kind of a trend. The year before that, 624, and then 2020 was the last year he really had a Jalen Ramsey season. 354 yards allowed total. He's never been one of the higher volume interception guys, which neither has Xavier Howard. Or actually, that's not necessarily true. I was thinking Byron Jones. I thought thinking the other way around. So you have Xavier Howard, who is the high volume interception guy, paired with currently Byron Jones, who's just excellent at coverage. Doesn't necessarily get the numbers, but is an excellent cover corner. And then bring in Jalen Ramsey instead of Byron Jones, somebody who has a championship experience and somebody who, at the very least, looks like he's going to be in the NFL next year, where Byron Jones, you have that question mark. I think Jalen Ramsey does make a lot of sense. The Miami Dolphins would probably have to give up 2 second-round picks. Some trade analysis breakdowns that I've seen has seen the Miami Dolphins give up 2 seconds and get Jalen in a 5th. And the Dolphins don't have a lot of needs. They do. There are definitely holes to be filled, like the offensive line, the running back game. Definitely needs an improvement. You probably want a better third receiver, a better tight end. Wide receiver, third string wide receiver, that's something you can find late in the draft. Running backs come a dime a dozen in the draft. A tight end, I'd be really okay if the Dolphins went out and got a guy like Gerald Everett, who has been bouncing around team to team. A guy like in years past, Jared Cook, because Mike Gesicki is going to be hitting the market, and he looks like he wants a lot of money. And that's just money that the Miami Dolphins don't have to spend and don't need to be spending on a guy who barely cracked 300 yards receiving. Money that should be spent on stars. And Jalen Ramsey is a star. He's a high-profile player. You just brought in Vic Fangio. Yeah, he's coming off of two not the best seasons, two lackluster seasons. But you pair him with Xavier Howard, you pair him with Vic Fangio, as well as the rest of the defense. I mean, you have Emmanuel Ogbah for now. We'll see what happens with that. Christian Wilkins. Obviously, Jalen Phillips, the second-year player, not going to his third season, really came into his own at the end. Bring in Bradley Chubb. It's a team that's a lot of talent and fought hard with the Buffalo Bills on 3 occasions. Really could have came away with 3 victories over the Buffalo Bills last season, and that includes the playoffs. So I think the Dolphins are in a position where they can go all in. If it doesn't work with Tua this year and the team has to start over, that could then be an out with Jalen Ramsey. You bring him for 1 season. If he doesn't work, okay, you move him off from whatever you can get for him, and you assess the team when it comes to that. But the Dolphins are in a position where I want them to go all in right now and try to see what happens when it comes to next year. The Buffalo Bills are starting to be impacted by Josh Allen's contract. The Patriots and the Jets, as of the time of recording, don't have reliable quarterbacks. I don't think Tua is necessarily reliable, but we've proved we can win with him and we've proved we can get to the playoffs with him. That's enough for me at the very moment, at the very least, to say, okay, I can understand the team giving him a year. I'm not necessarily thrilled about it, but we got to the playoffs. We held our own with a third-string quarterback against the Buffalo Bills. I understand the team's decision to stick with Tua, so why not just go all in and see what happens? And part of that is going out and getting a guy like Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey, he's a little expensive. He's going to be $17 million next year. Going to be probably 2 second-round picks, maybe a second, maybe a third, and get a little bit back, as well as Jalen Ramsey for him. And you pair him with a guy with Xavier Howard, and Xavier Howard last year, when he didn't have a lot of help around him, he didn't necessarily have himself a great year. 779 yards allowed, worst in his career. 101 passer rating allowed, second worst in his career. Didn't have a great season. Allowed 4 touchdowns. It's about where he averages on his season. Xavier Howard didn't have a great season because he didn't have a lot of help, and then Jalen Ramsey didn't have a great season probably because he didn't have a lot of help. You merge those two together, as well as everything that's going on with this team, I think it's going to be a lot of success for the Miami Dolphins, and I think it's definitely something they should consider. What do you think of Jalen Ramsey? Do you think this is a move the Miami Dolphins should make? Do you think we should stay put and just use those draft picks to continue to build the team with youth? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also, 2 things, let me know what you think. Did some natural light today just because the sun was just perfectly placed, kind of. Had to adjust a little bit. So then what you think about the natural lighting, as well as I did change the camera. I went from my 4K down to just my 1080p. The 4K one has just an auto adjust feature that I can't turn off. There's just nothing I can do about that. So it's definitely a lot better of a camera, but then you see the screen like pulsating. It's just ever so slightly just pulsating every now and then when I make any movement from side to side. So of the 2 cameras, this camera, and then I also did this same Logitech webcam last video. So if you go over to last week's recordings, if you want to just help me out, look at the 2. Just let me know what you think of this camera versus that camera. But also, again, make sure you let me know what you think about Jalen Ramsey. Please make sure to like, subscribe. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.